Hello and welcome to Your Voice. I'm Ted Kofi. Now, between 1,200 and 1,500 black Americans are killed by the police every year. Yet, very few prosecutions are brought against them. Black death at the hands of law enforcers has become almost a part of the American way of life. So, when 4 police officers arrested George Floyd, and one of them put his knee on his neck for over 8 minutes, effectively choking him to death, no one could have predicted what would happen next. With all 4 officers fired and just one officer initially charged with 3rd-degree murder and 2nd-degree manslaughter, African Americans exploded in rage at the injustice of the situation. Demonstrations quickly spread from Minneapolis round to other states and cities, and they have now gone worldwide. Japan, Spain, the UK, France, Sweden, Finland, Italy, Australia, Denmark and Poland, to name but a few, have all seen Black Lives Matter demonstrations. The hashtag #ICan'tBreathe, George Floyd's last words before he died, has gone viral. Now, we use these words as the title of our first episode of Your Voice, the show that lets you express your point of view and have your voice heard. Now, I'm joined today in the studio by Dayo Fasina Thomas, also known as D-Boy Dayo. Now, D-Boy is a 2017 African Pride Award winner as Radio Personality of the Year and is a leading figure on the Afrobeat scene. With us also is former Mayor of Hackney Council and Councillor Susan Fajana Thomas, who herself is still very active in the NGO space. A real pleasure to have you both join us. So let's dive straight in. Susan, many videos have been taken of police having violent confrontations with black Americans. Many videos have been taken of people being killed in custody. What is so special about the killing of George Floyd that it has affected the whole of America, gone viral around the world, and is causing all these demonstrations?
Thanks very much. I'll mention 3 things. The first one is what you said in your introduction. It is, that video is very powerful. The video is what you call seeing is believing. Of course, there have been various videos such as that in the past, but seeing an adult kneeling on someone's neck and that person is shouting, "I can't breathe." It is so powerful, it makes it real. And this is something that will happen in a playground with 2 children.
Right.
As an adult, you will say, "Oh, stop that. You were hurting him." And this man had his hand in his pocket. It's like
Casually.
Casually. So it is so powerful. It brought out oppression, it brought out brutality on video. So it is very powerful. And again, people are home. People, because of the lockdown, people have a bit of time to watch videos such as that on social media and have time on their hand to actually go out and protest.
But I mean, why did that video and this event cause such a cataclysmic change around the world, D-Boy?
Thanks for having me, Ted. I think first and foremost we have to think about what happened a couple of months ago with Ahmaud Arbery. Right. I think that was really fresh on people's minds. A lot of young people still had that in their memories. Sure. Social media had the hashtags, and a lot of people posted the pictures of these 2 white supremacists who murdered this jogger walking down the street. So that was very fresh in people's minds. It was like
hunting an animal, wasn't it?
Absolutely, just like hunting an animal. And that was still fresh on people's minds. So, you know, taking that into consideration, the fact that, you know, young people today, the power of social media, and, you know, it's grown like with crazy numbers. Like we don't just look at Instagram anymore. There's Twitter, there's all these other social media platforms. So it went viral a lot quicker because a lot more young people, you know, passed it on and shared it a lot quicker. And also what Susan mentioned, the fact that, you know, we're at home at the moment. A lot of young people, a lot of people are at home at the moment. we're on a lockdown with the whole COVID situation. So we had enough time to take it all in.
Okay, so but I mean about the lockdown, it's not just the time to take it in, is it? Because actually for the first time, a lot of white kids, a lot of white people had their liberty taken away under the lockdown situation. And so they would know more immediately how it feels to be deprived of your liberty.
Absolutely.
Do you think that contributed to this matter going worldwide? Susan?
Yeah, I think so. It contributed because, like you said, it makes it real to them that this is somebody
They can relate to it.
They can relate to it. And again, why we're talking about white young people as well as young black people.
Right,
People
right.
are already charged because of the impact of COVID-19 on the black communities.
Right, got it. Now, you see, if I may just move kind of in a matter that's related to this, D-Boy, do you think that this current outrage is something that is going to cause permanent change, or is it just literally people saw something really genuinely horrific live before their eyes, and they saw a snuff movie basically right before their eyes, and this is the initial shock? Will it fizzle out?
I mean, Ted, the reason why we're marching is for permanent change, but it remains to be seen. I don't think anyone can predict what the future is going to be and what the outcome is going to be in terms of change. And when I talk about change, I'm talking about systematic change within the attitudes to minorities, black people more specifically, the way the society reacts to our actions. Even the fact that people still call black on black violence a thing. Coining that term alone in itself is, I feel, is a racist term. Like it's you don't hear people talk about white on white violence. You don't hear people talk about Asian on Asian violence.
Right.
Why does black on black violence have to be a
Right.
thing? So it remains
Right.
to be seen whether this is going to bring permanent change.
Susan, are you hopeful of
I'm
permanent change?
hopeful. Yes,
Why?
it remains to be seen.
I mean, very precisely why?
Because the reason I'm hopeful is at the moment there have been various conversations with many governors in America looking at how they can change legislation around engagement with the black community
And the processes.
and the process, and I think that will be seen through.
Okay, can I ask you now, as a councillor, bring
Okay.
it back home to our communities here in the United Kingdom, what impact is this going to have? Because I've seen those demonstrations in London. They were passionate. There were a bunch of young white kids, people of all ethnicities out there saying Black Lives Matter. So what's going to be the impact for the UK?
It is going to have a big impact on us here in this country. I'm a member of Stand Up to Racism, and I joined people in Hackney yesterday to organize one of the Taking the Knee event. It was so powerful. We had many people saying, because it was a socially distanced event, we only admitted 200 people. We're going to have a repeat on Saturday because many people wanted to be part of that, and they didn't have the opportunity.
Okay, I'm going to ask you now, both of you, really what could be quite a sensitive question, and it's connected to this. Do you think that white society even knows how to respect black people and black lives? D-Boy.
It's an interesting question, and it's talking about white society respecting black society. I think you have to look at individuals. I think it's unfair to label white society as a whole in general. I feel like racism comes from individuals and individuals within white society.
No, I'm going to push you further. I'm going to push you further with that. It's because you're talking about systemic ways of doing things. So that if we look at our institutions in the United Kingdom, the education, the employment, the judicial system, so many other things, even COVID health outcomes, which we'll discuss later, all of these things are linked into systems. Now, it doesn't actually matter what the individual is saying. If these systems are still in place, does it not say something to you about culturally whether or not this system knows how to respect the lives of black people? Susan, over to you.
I think probably the word respect might be a bit confusing or a bit complex here. We all seek to respect, even from white community. Sometimes you seek to for respect in various areas. It might be as a woman, I want the men to respect me. Even the white people want, it might be based on gender, based on low grade, they still want to respect. But when we are talking about systemic change, I think what this has done is it has brought back the issue of inequalities on the agenda, which is where that is. And that is what is going to be pushed, which I'm sure both black and white people will be happy to push forward in terms of how are we looking into inequalities in our society. Not just around, it's not just about race anymore. Okay. It's about the opportunities that are available for all of us in the society.
Okay. Now, I mean, with all the traffic that's going on with social media and so on and so forth, can either of you name one significant contact you've made with people in your network or out in the wider society which makes you think this situation is different? This is going to be different to the last time. D-Boy?
I haven't made any specific contacts or networks with anyone within my network that makes me think it's going to be different. In all honesty, you know, I always have hope in these situations, but we just have to look at history and look at this has happened before. This is not the first time this has happened. You know, black people have been lynched, been killed by the hands of the police for years. This is not the first instance. This is not the first time it's going to happen. And you know, although we try and have hope, we try and march, and we try and scream to make sure that there's some sort of change, I just don't know how that change is going to come about. You know, I'd like to think there's something from politicians that can make that change, but it's unfortunate because I just feel like we're going down this road. We've been down this road before. You know, how is that change going to happen? You know, and I honestly don't know.
Well, we're going to take a short break now, but please join us again for part 2, where we'll be continuing the conversation. See you in a few minutes.
Yes, I'm telling the truth. Batterbox is coming to Yanga TV. Yes. Hold on, let me call you back. Let me let the people know. My people, it's true. You heard it here first. Batterbox is coming to Yanga TV. I, Man Sobella, will bring you the best of the food, the entertainment, the fashion, the arts, the merry, the jolly. So make sure you come to Yanga TV, the one-stop shop for everything Batterbox and everything enjoyment. Let's go. Let's check it out. You know what it's going to be. Yanga TV, Batterbox. Let's go.
This is exactly what I needed. Away from all the drama.
I've just come. The whole place, all of you are doing face like something is smelly. It's fights that you are used to welcome person from village.
Get ready for June on Yanga. Yanga is trials and tribulations.
Stop crying, you're giving me a headache. It's all about 10 after all I've done.
Hit the floor with Yanga.
I don't get that lot.
Yanga is drama.
You cannot make an omelette without breaking a few eggs, the same way you cannot build an empire without breaking a few careers. As at the moment, 305 marketers will be disengaged, band-wide, starting from today, before the end of this month.
This month on Yanga TV.
What gave you the right to invade the privacy of a noble woman?
You have not heard the end of it.
D.O., you gave us your word.
I gave you no word.
I like that.
your system costs $1 million.
You know what you've been up to with money.
Baba.
Finally, we don't see one youth. We talk say the oppression, whether the oppressors of this country, too much.
Here's my opinion when women change their character. Is that she started cheating on you or she's trying to kill you. Start talking.
Welcome back to Your Voice with me, Ted Kofi, and my guests, Susan Fajana Thomas and D-Boy Dio. Now, I'm going to put a question which really has been put out there by Steve Harvey, the well-known celebrity talk show host in America. He has told the demonstrators to stop and go home on the basis that other people will come along, hijack their agenda. Agent provocateur will be sent along by unfriendly forces to actually jimmy up the riots and make it look as if these people are all criminals when they have a really good cause. Is there any wisdom in that, Susan?
Oh, to a certain extent, I think it is a yes. As part of the campaign, two things we have been campaigning for is to charge the officer. He has been charged. Is to upgrade the charges. The charges have been upgraded and the other 3 officers have been charged as well. So the next step is to be seeking to have a conviction now. And I think the rest of the fight is about engagement with government, is about constructive engagement. Legal process that can bring change, and community engagement that can bring change. I'm
going to take you on with the community engagement thing there. What do you mean by community engagement?
What I meant by community engagement is that even in our country, in the UK, you seems to have the police in one side and the community they meant to be protecting on the other.
So it's a question of bringing them together.
It's the question of bringing them together to engage. In terms the policing we have both here in America are policing by consent, and that needs to be brought back on the agenda and discuss how police can protect us with our consent.
Terrific. Now, D-Boy, so we made the point, the charges have been increased, now it's a legal process. Guys should go home?
I don't agree that we should go home yet. And you know what Susan mentioned as far as community engagement with the police and people, we've spoken about this, we've gone down this road before, there wasn't any change. I think that faster measures can be brought into place. Parliament needs to move quicker. Things need to move quicker as far as the system and the way that it's structured, as far as like stop and searches. We know that they're over heavily handed in black populated communities. We know that the way that police interact with the community, it's just slow to change. Things like this need to move up, need to pick up a lot faster. And I just feel like once this stops, like once people go home and say, we're not protesting anymore, it just goes to sleep.
It just fizzles out.
It's just going to fizzle out.
Okay.
No, going home that I'm saying is not going home and keep and shut up. It's going home and now the engagement will continue, but it's no longer on the street. The engagement now is more of political engagement to bring about systemic change.
Okay.
In honesty, sorry, Ted, just to say this, I just feel like this is the only time that they listen to us. Like we've been down this road before, like I've said it over and over again. We've been down this road where on social media, we've said things like we've had engagements, we've had police inquiries, we've had this over and over again. They only listen when we stand up and march. That's the only time they're prepared to listen. When we march and we make noise and we scream from the rooftops, that's the only time people are prepared to sit down at a table and have a conversation with us. I just feel that the moment we sit down and we back down, that is the point where it starts to fizzle out. I'm sorry, Susan.
No, that's okay. The backing down is a backing down that need organizing. And as long as we have somebody like President Trump, who is a racist and a bigot in the White House, being on the street is not going to help. What I think people need to now go back and use their vote come November this year in
Back-
the
you're back-
general election in America.
Okay, you're back with the electoral process, but we've had a question in from one of the viewers, from Tim in London. How do we change the school's syllabus so the conversation about racism can start earlier? Susan.
It is, again, it's about the government. It's about the education system. It's about us as black community saying that this is important. I think in particular in this country, I think because we don't see people get killed every day like the situation in America, people think racism
doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, but racism exists here. But the difference between racism in America and here, most people that perpetrated the perpetrated racism in this country are actually the system in place, and that is what we need to fight. We need to lobby to change.
Okay.
Like
so let's talk, for example, about the curriculum. I mean, my experience is that when I talk with most people about the history of the world, people are incredibly ignorant of Britain's colonial and empire history. They frankly don't know, and so a lot of their behaviours and attitudes are predictable. What do you propose about to address something like that?
I think it's extremely unfortunate. Like when you look at that, the history of the importance of black people within the British society,
right,
the impact that we've had in this nation, and some of the stuff that we've done to empower
right,
this nation to be such a powerful nation.
right.
And I think that the curriculum needs to definitely include like some of the stuff that, you know, when we talk about Windrush, some of the young people today don't even know what Windrush is. You know, and you look at what they've done as far as like the colonizing and coming into Africa. Some of that stuff, a lot of young black people don't understand, don't know the history, and oblivious to all these things. It needs to be included in the curriculum. Unfortunately, I'm not part of the education system, but it's something that, that can be taught.
But Susan, you are. I mean, you're in local politics, which is part of the totem pole. What are you doing to ensure that, the background is taught, at least it's on the table for people to understand and absorb?
It is important, and again, it's about lobbying, it's about saying this is important, I need to go on the syllabus. But ultimately, what changes racism is the attitude. Education is important for people to have the background, as you both said, but it's the attitude of people that can change racism. So it's about saying racism comes from the fact that some people believe they're better than others. Mm-hmm. It's not education that will make you stop thinking that I'm better than you. So it is about people's attitude. And how do we do that?
How do you change the attitudes, tBreathe?
I think, no one's born racist. No child is born into this world as a racist. It's something that's taught. So I think, going back to the education system, I feel like when it's taught in schools, when it's taught to different people, when a teacher is teaching a group of students of all races, of all different backgrounds, about the history of black people in the United Kingdom, the history of other nations, I think this in itself will encourage us to have more of a dialogue, especially with young people from a young age. When you're over like a certain age, when you're a parent, so it's difficult to educate someone who's already had preconceived ideas on how other races are. But for a young person, starting from the primary school education all the way to secondary school, I think it's important to include it in the syllabus.
Well, the reason I asked you the earlier question about whether white society actually knows how to respect black people is that whereas as parents, we all have conversations with our children about sex, drugs, alcohol, and all the things that can be a problem for them, actually, most people do not have an explicit conversation about race. And so their knowledge of race comes from the media. Yeah. And the stereotypes that are put out in the media are usually quite negative. What do you propose we can do about this?
You want?
Either of you.
I would say first and foremost, we need to look at what's being broadcast on our TVs. We need to look at the way, we have media. It would be ignorant to say that media, there isn't right-wing media and left-wing media. The way news is reported needs to be looked at. I think there needs to be regulations in place into how things are being reported. They need to be reported accurately and fairly. And I don't think media outlets have.
Well, what about the ethnic media then, Susan?
The ethnic media
Right.
is there, but it's rather than, obviously we know that many people watch the mainstream media.
Right.
The ethnic media are doing their bit. I
Yeah.
just want to add to what you said. When you have a government, we all knew in the next month we've already left Europe, and when you looked back into the campaign around Brexit, it was all driven by immigration. When you have a society that divide, you have a government that divide the society, that believes immigrants are this way while the native are that way, you will find there's no amount of education that will happen that things like this, racism will not happen.
Okay.
Part of it is changing, is about changing the mind and changing the way some of the people in government.
Right. Okay. Can I just say that somebody once wrote that the problem with bereavement is that actually it is the death of somebody who you know now. It triggers all the other sadnesses that you have in your life, and that's why bereavement hurts so much. Now, I've seen a lot of commentary indicating that watching that man die under those circumstances, none of us knew him. None of us knew him, but it triggered a lot of grief and foreboding and desperation, helplessness in people. How do you think it feels to live in a majority white society now after watching scenes like that? Susan?
Oh, I think one thing we should understand is we live in a white society, and not all white people are racist, and not all white people are like Officer Dominic. I think that is important for us to understand.
Right.
But having said that, bereavement triggers empathy and sympathy. With COVID-19, many of us, like personally, COVID-19 death have really had a major impact on Black Africans.
Sure.
Personally, I've known like almost 20 people that have died.
Right.
And that is there, you are actually grieving and hurting for the death of somebody because of a pandemic, because of a virus.
Right.
And now looking at somebody, another Black person, this is not virus, and a white man or a police officer killing that person right in front of everybody. It triggers anger, it triggers frustration, it triggers why am I not worth
How does it feel?
it?
So I mean, Dubai, I mean, that's one generation's point of view. What do you think younger people are feeling after watching these scenes about living in Britain?
I think we're just frustrated, and I think this was just the straw that brought the camel's back. Like you look back into the way that once again how police relations have dealt with young people, especially Black people within our community, and going back to that image, his hands were cuffed. His hands were cuffed, and the pictures and the images that we saw on TV, with his hand on his knee on his neck and his hand in his pocket, it just, it was enough to blow anyone's senses out into this kind of fashion. And when we look at history and when we look at the way that police have engaged with us, it just seems that it's just going to happen again, and young people have just had enough. We've just had enough.
Well, I'm sure we're all going to be watching this space. So far, what has happened has been unpredictable. Let's hope for positive new changes that results as a result of this awful experience for everybody. Okay, now I want to end on this message from the Mimi contacting us from Barcelona in Spain. What she says is toleration and loving one another helps change racist attitudes. And on that note, that's all we have time for on this edition of Your Voice. Thank you to my guests, Susan Fajana Thomas and D-Boy Dio. And thank you for watching. I'm Ted Kofi. Please join us again next time here on Your Voice.